All right, so looking at Africa, we see that generally climate change affects Africa in a very different way. We are often the higher recipients of the impact of climate change, given that we do not readily have some of the responsive measures and adaptation measures when it comes to climate change. I mean, even in terms of our structure, the way our communities are arranged, and when you look at the landscape of development in Africa, you see that there is still a lot of ground level works currently being done. And when you look at our agricultural um, development, you then see that we do not have, as it were, mechanized farming as maybe some developed economies would have, and therefore we now need some support in terms of our farming. And Africa also produces one of the largest um, food exports for the world. So it then means that Africa is important to the global economy in terms of food production. However, Africa faces challenges in terms of some of its development. When you look at security, when you look at health, you look at the impact of even climate change on health. I think I spoke about that 2 weeks ago when I spoke in this space. So we see that climate change is actually very important, and it readily posed a risk to the African economy far greater than maybe other places in the developed world. And it has consequences, spoken about that in terms of melting of the glaciers and also the release of new diseases, a lot of drought and flooding going across several places in Africa. Some of that we have seen even in our days. Um, Also some sort of fire and deforestation. So to combat climate change, we then see that global efforts are currently being made. I mean, the conference of party conferences that usually hold every year are an avenue to see that the world generally is advancing towards climate mitigation and adaptation in a way that does not leave anyone behind. But you see, one of the things that when we now begin to think about this is that the way it impacts us, like I mentioned earlier, is different. And um, several developments are being made by subnationals, national government, regional bodies. The international community is coming together to see how they can address climate change. I think, arguably, in the world, we can say that the subject of climate change dominates most of the discourses that go around in the world today. Hardly would you see an international gathering that does not have the context of climate change in it, and maybe energy poverty and energy access. So it therefore shows us the importance of climate change and how it affects us. The world can actually, last year I applied for a fellowship at Cambridge, and the subject of the fellowship was just on existential risk, and it was on climate change, how that climate change has the capacity to actually snuff out humanity if not properly dealt with and anticipated properly. So when we also look at the case of Africa, we have very minimal contribution to the global emissions. Emissions have a very close relationship with climate change. We contribute very minimally to global emissions. However, when we also look at the rate of pollution in our cities and our communities, it's not small. In fact, despite the fact that we say we contribute very, small amount of emissions, we see that a whole lot of people every year die from, emissions, maybe say emissions from from cooking, emissions from transportation, um, every year in Africa. So it then shows us that even though it's small, it still has a greater effect on our communities. Um, so leaving our continent very vulnerable to climate change and its impact. Therefore, it then poses a challenge to our sustainable development. I mean, I was saying, I think maybe it was our last conversation, how that there can be no sustainable growth if we do not have people in good health to do the work that we need to do. Imagine a community of sick people, maybe people with cancer, people with a lot of lung infections and diseases, and then how then are we going to develop the manpower that should do the things that we need to do for us to get to where we want to get in our economy, in our society, and also in our financial status. So it then means that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but we need people to be in the right space of mind, in the right state of health to be able to do these things. But then climate change poses a risk to our health, it poses a risk to our financial capacity, poses a risk to even our food production. So then we begin to see that climate change is not something to be toyed with, therefore needs to be addressed very importantly. So in the context of the African challenge, we see that there are specific challenges that are posed by climate change that exacerbate our vulnerabilities and impact various sectors. Talking about rising temperature and heat, research has shown out that rising temperature can actually impact and affect people's health, and much more beyond that, it can lead to heat stress in agriculture and even livestock. Um, so there is a lot that needs to be looked into when we look at water scarcity and drought. I mentioned how that the African economy, um, the African economy actually depends a whole lot when it comes. Well, it depends a whole lot on agriculture, and when there is water scarcity,
Hello, hello, Ayodeji.
yes,
Yeah, it's just a reminder that you now have 3 minutes left.
all right,
It's just a, yeah,
all right.
okay.
So when we look at water scarcity, the level of impact on our agriculture, the flooding that we have across several places, food insecurity. By the way, I can definitely share this slide with anyone that might be interested. Um, so there is a lot of development, engagement that is being done, a lot of youth engagement being done as we are here on this space. I think this is a youth-led organization that is engaging people and raising public awareness. Like I've mentioned, regional collaborations and national collaborations. One of those regional collaborations is the one that we have by the United Nations Environmental Program. Also, a lot of policy regulations, a lot of development are coming out. We have nationally developed contributions. Um, so there is a lot going on globally, to just combat climate change. However, we also have financial support and investment. Um, a lot of money is being poured. I think globally, I think it's $100 million that's supposed to be allocated to technology transfer, just focus on climate change every year. But that's its own challenges. But it shows that there is a lot of investment going into exacerbating climate change and reducing and mitigating its impact on human health, the environment, and also sustainable development. Um, Now, this is just a snapshot of some innovations in Africa, projects that are going on in Africa, young people leading several things. I have a couple of them in my network that are doing impressive things. Um, some of the uh, some of the panelists that will be speaking later on are also doing very, impressive things. Chizoba is doing a lot of work when it comes to climate change, leading some work in clean cooking and also climate adaptation and resilience. So we have a lot of projects going on in Africa. But which is um, beyond that, we also have solutions that are categorized. But um, to take the remaining, I guess maybe 2 minutes I have, I want to say that when we look at all of the things that are playing out in Africa in terms of our environment, in terms of climate innovation, in terms of the development that we need, even talk about renewable energy, clean transportation, all of the things that I've listed on this slide, there is a need for us as youth to stand up, to do things. It cannot, and this doesn't necessarily mean that we individually have to start our own thing, but find a way to say that I would create impact. Maybe you join Sustainable Africa, the convener of this conversation. Maybe you look at Chizoba and you look at project that you want to execute and come together in collaboration. It's important that we begin to look at how we can contribute more through the development on Africa and look at how we can use innovation. And innovation does not mean new technology. Innovation is simply looking at what is the existing technology and how we can make it better or adapt it to our local context. A lot of technology are being produced globally, but are they really fitting into the African environment? When we look at that, we then see that there is an urgent action that needs to be taken. And we as young people are the ones that will take that action. When we look at the future, we,
Hello.
um, and whatever we do now is what we are going to leave for the next generation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ayodeji. I know you had much, but I wouldn't want us also to eat some of the time for Chizoba. I know that she's pegged and would also want to contribute to this forum. And thank you so much for those insights, like pinpointing that climate change affects Africa in a unique way. And for us to act on it, it means that we need to act in a unique way and not taking in the one size fits all mantra, but actually taking in what is working in the African context. And I'm sure that some of the presentation that you have been sharing and also the slides will also be shared to everyone, so that they can even get to have all the things that you were that you had, even those that you have actually left out. This time, let me also introduce the second keynote speaker. And the second keynote speaker is from GIS for Africa by the name Olemu Ogene-Chukwu. Olemu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's an honor for me to be here today, and I'm very excited also to see the number of people that have turned out for this event. So big ups to everybody. Before I continue, let me just share my slide. Yes, can you see this now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So um my name is Ogenechukwu Olemu, and today I'm also going to be talking on the topic. One second. Yes, I'm going to be talking on the topic African innovation in climate change solution. But before then, I would like you, if you can follow me on Instagram or on Twitter at Olemu Ochukwu. The reason is because I would like us to keep up the conversation even after this meeting. So, and it will also show me that you were able to follow what I was saying. So if you don't mind, try and check me up on Twitter or on Instagram and follow me. Okay, let's move on. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 things briefly. First, the common innovation myths. The common innovation myths, that is, what are the myths people have about innovation? Then I'm going to be talking about climate change from the GIS perspective. What does climate change mean from geographic information system perspective? I will also talk about the 5 important GIS layers when you are dealing with climate change. Then I'm also going to talk about some popular data sources for climate. Then I'm also going to briefly introduce us to some spatial analysis that can drive innovation. So I don't have much time, but I'll be as brief as possible. But I hope you follow me. Now, some people believe that innovation has to be a big idea. It has to be something massive. Oh, nobody has done it before. I'm happy that the first speaker made mention of that briefly, and he said innovation is about making probably what is happening globally, how you apply it locally. And I subscribe to that idea also. So innovation does not have to be a big idea. Then secondly, some people think they are not capable of coming up with innovations. They think, oh, it's for the smartest people in the class. It's for the now. Innovation can happen at any time. Some people also believe innovation has to be destructive. That is something nobody has done before. Oh, amazing! This is great. No, innovation does not necessarily have to be that. It could just be something little. A change in a way, a change in a route. You know then failure, some people always say failure is not failure is not an option. Failure is not an option. But if you look at it critically, there's no failure as it were, because you learn how to do it better because you keep proceeding. I remember when I wanted to do my um, final year project, our supervisors told us that there is no wrong project, just present whatever you discover. So sometimes what we think is a failure is actually a discovery. Then finally, innovation is risky and expensive, not necessarily. It could be simple, it could be easy, it could be cheap. So let's move to my second one, climate change from a GIS perspective. All right, so I'm from Geographic Information System for Africa, GIS for Africa. And basically what GIS for Africa is about is an organization that brings together people with the GIS knowledge, maybe learners or people experts. When they come together, they try to see how they can use GIS to solve Africa's problems, the challenges that Africa is facing. So that is what GIS for Africa is about. Then GIS for Africa now has a development project where it involves producers, it involves consumers, and also engage supply chains. But now let's talk about what GIS means from what climate change means from a GIS perspective. First, GIS is a component of people, information, method, hardware, and software. So a GIS, a geographic climate. Now let's see what I did here. This information has been changed to climate change. So because GIS can be any information, it could be agriculture, it could be husbandry, it could be whatever. So for this time, since we are focusing on climate change, so we are going to be replacing this information here with climate change. So it becomes a geographic climate change system, integrates, that is, the component that I mentioned earlier, integrates, analyze, models, and visualize complex spatial information about climate change. Don't worry, I will explain that further when in my discussion. So a geographic system for climate change will involve maybe the researchers, the students that are learning about climate change. It could even involve the farmers that are being affected. Then there could be softwares that they will use to analyze the data that they get. So as I proceed, you will understand better. So basically, I want you to have that picture that when we say GIS or climate change from a GIS perspective, just say geographic climate change system. All right. So let's move to the next one. So let's look at, though I wrote 5 important layers, I think I included 2 more layers later. So there are some layers that you will need when you want to understand climate change, right? Don't forget, climate is a weather condition of a place over a long period of time. I remember during our geography class, then they said 25 years, 20 years, 30 years. However, climate is made up of different things or different attributes. So these are some of the important attributes that we have listed here. So I'll just run through it quickly. I think they are self-explanatory. Temperature, that is precipitation, which is like rainfall, sea level, land cover in terms of how what is the natural display of the land, if I can use that word. Then land use is what is how people have used the land. For example, maybe there is a forest, now they have used it to maybe build it something and stuff like that. Then extreme weather events, for example, flooding, bush wildfire, all these ones. Population layer also are water body. These are important layers that you need to take note if you want to be innovative in the climate change. Now, let's move very quickly. Another one is, where are the data sources? Where can we get data for climate change? Now, I won't start from number one. I want to start from number four, using questionnaire. Because we want to be innovative, it is always very important that we start locally. So one of the ways we can gather data is using questionnaires. When it might not necessarily mean you have to print it in papers. You might have jotted it down in your house and say, okay, I'll be asking 3 questions from people that I see. So whenever you see people, you ask them those questions. So using questionnaires, then sometimes you go to the field yourself. Take note of the river in your area. Where was it whenever it was raining? Whenever it is raining, what happens? For example, whenever it's raining, sometimes I go to there's a green space very close to my house. I go, okay, how much flood happened? When there was snow, I went there, okay, what I observed myself. So we should also be able to move out of our houses and observe our environment. Then apart from that, there is a very important one that we can use in Africa, which is Digital Earth Africa, or African Job Portal. They are doing a fantastic job. You can connect there and get data, as well as this other too. Now moving on. So now this is a very important aspect that I would like you to take note of. Spatial analysis for innovation. Now, even though this might be some words you might not have heard before, but they are actually what our brain does. Usually we do it. So now, when, for example, you've taken data from point A, B, C, D of 5 points, but because of logistics, you cannot go to 6 other places. With GIS, you can do what we call interpolation and get data for those other places. So interpolation is a technique used to predict values at unmeasured locations. So even though I could not go to location 6, but because I've gotten information from 5 locations, I can interpolate and get location 6. Another one is buffering. For example, you can create a buffer, like let me use the word perimeter, or an area around something. So if a river floods, you can create a buffer to know, okay, from this buffer, we will not build houses, or we are going to turn this place to farm and stuff like that. Then finally, overlaying of multiple spatial data sets. Now let me take you back to this layer. Now this is one of the strengths of GIS. So you can now overlay all this layer together on a map. During this presentation, I was thinking maybe I should do that, but I said I'll keep it in a way that if you are inquisitive, you can reach out to me, or you can also do a simple Google search. But then there are also things, courses and programs that you can subscribe to. But don't let me digress too much. So these are some layers that you can overlay. For example, I can overlay the temperature or the population layer against the extreme weather. I can say, oh, because the population is dispersed around this way, and this weather, and there's flooding around this area, I think we need to move to this area. So I'll be rounding up on that note. I hope I've been able to let you see that you have what it takes to come up with solutions. And with the GIS technology, you are more empowered to come up with local solutions that will solve the problems of the people around you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for that presentation. Indeed, we will also follow each other on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. So um, thank you so much for those insights, like what you were mentioning, like that innovation is about making it accessible to the people and also making it simple to the people so that people can actually get the idea, use the process and everything. Thank you so much for that engagement. A gentle reminder to everyone, when you join in the call, kindly mute your mic so that we can have an audible session. Um, Otherwise, thank you so much for that engagement. So the next one whom I'm going to call is actually Abilu, Mr. Abilu Tangwa. Would you kindly take in the floor and give us your presentation? Um, to everyone who is participating in the call, it's a gentle reminder again. If you have something that is burning, write it in the chat. You have got something that you feel that is going to be a positive engagement, write it in the chat so that we can actually take justice for any engagement that you might have. Thank you so much. Mr. Abilu, I leave this time for you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining. It's a pleasure to be here in this panel again, thanks to the initiative by Sustainable Africa. So the topic today is innovations addressing climate change in Africa and the future of climate change in Africa. So the topic is really a timely topic as Africa as a continent is heavily hit hard by the implications of climate change. Africa is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world because of their heavy reliance or their heavy dependence on the agriculture for their source of livelihood. In fact, about 70% of the population of Africa depend purely on agriculture. So that makes Africa more vulnerable to the implications of climate change, like temperature variability, increases in temperature, rainfall variability, and so on and so forth. So our topic is aimed at looking at the innovations, some of the innovations through which the African continents have been able to cope or have been able to adapt to most of these challenges. And to me, the first technology that Africa has is its forests. Forests are a major source of fighting climate change. In fact, forests constitute our major carbon reservoir. So you look at the case of Africa, look at the examples of those countries that are found within the Gulf, within the Congo Basin, even the whole of Africa, their location, the fact that they are found within the tropical area with enough rainfall, with enough temperature that is conducive for the growth of most of these plants. I think we should be acting as a leading player in the fight against this climate change. So the first technology that we have as a continent in the fight against climate change is afforestation initiative. African communities are taking and launching community-based restoration initiatives that are aimed at restoring degraded environment, and also ensuring the preservation of most of the endangered trees and animal species. That's the combination of biodiversity, that's the volume of living and non-living organisms. You look at a country like Ethiopia, I think with her initiative called Green Legacy, their project is aimed to plant 4 billion trees by which elapses last year. I think it was a success. If every country in Africa can emulate this example, I think we'll be doing a lot in the fight against climate change, because we'll be creating a lot of reservoirs for carbon emissions. You look at the initiative by Nigerian Great Green Wall. It was an initiative to combat desertification. You look at most of these countries that are found within the Sahel region, within the Horn of Africa. I think this tree planting initiative should be one of tree planting initiative should be mandated within this area to fight the encroachment of desertification within most of these vulnerable communities. You also look at a country like Cameroon. Cameroon is collaborating with Nigeria, with Niger, with Chad in her operation termed Operation Green Sahel. This operation is aimed at curbing the encroachment of desert within the Sahel region, and I think it is already a success because part of the lake has already been restored. I think this is one of the key areas, one of the key technology that we have as a continent. The second technology that we have as a continent is in the area of renewable energy. Even though we have not yet made a lot of investment in this area, as statistically, there are only about 5% of investment within the green energy sector. So our government, the government of Africa, they should be doing a lot in diverting resources for the exploitation and implementation of most of these sustainable resources. I was talking with someone from Climate Reality Project in America, and he told me that the government of the United States, they have actually allocated a funds of about 30 billion for the investment within this renewable energy. In fact, renewable energy is already a leading employer within most of these developing countries, example, the United States. You look at Africa, the third one should be sustainable agriculture. That's already that's one of the highest technology that has been invented by our forefathers, the sustainable agriculture. You look at, I'm talking about agroforestry, I'm talking about drip irrigation system, I'm talking about intercropping system, I'm talking about crop rotation. These are some of sustainable initiatives that could help us reverse some of the challenges that we are facing, that are facing our agricultural sector. So this is one of the highest initiatives that we can use as a continent to drive sustainable initiative and curb the implications that climate change is having within our agricultural system. Countries like those countries that are found within the Sahel region, I think they are using this concept of drip irrigation system, using small water to produce large agricultural produce. Those countries within the Sahel, those countries that are hit by drought, I think they should be using this is one of the best options with tree planting. They can these practices can go a long way in curbing most of the implications of climate change. We are also having an innovation term, that's a water management system, which innovation in through creation of dams to store water during the rainy season and use during the dry season. These are some of the innovations that are already taking place and already driving economies in Africa. There's also a lot of research, and I think there are already implementation within certain areas in the creation of drought-resistant crops to adapt in most of this harsh environment. The next part of the presentation is now what is the future of climate change in Africa? Because we still have a lot of challenges. We still have a lot of challenges. Those who are found, those who've been listening to the news, the Horn of Africa is actually grieving. The Sahel region is actually grieving. Why? Because of the problem of the implications of climate change. So a lot still needs to be done. We need to collaborate. We need to create initiatives that are aimed at creating an enabling environment for the present and the future generation. So the first point I was looking about is scaling up and replicating sustainable climate innovations. We should be able to borrow from countries that are making progress within this area. You look at, I think, a country like Kenya, they are actually doing a lot when it's come to the implementation of most of these renewable energy resources. Even a country, Cameroon is actually playing a role, a leading role when it comes to the implementing agroforestry initiative, and even the creating forest and wildlife reserve to ensure the sustainability of most of our endangered species. So we should be able to borrow from most of these countries. We should also be able to align climate plans with sustainable development goals. For example, you look at the sustainable development goals, you look at the goal one, which aim at no to poverty, you look at the fight against hunger, you look at the fight against biodiversity, you look at the fight against climate change. These are some of the goals that should be inculcated within our developmental plan. And you look at the area of agriculture, look at a goal like the fight against hunger. We cannot continue to produce food that end up in dustbin. We should be able to create an enabling environment. What are we going to do after we must have harvested most of this produce? Because you look, agriculture is also a major contributor to climate change, to the emission of CO2. And we have also, research shows that when food is wasted within landfills, within the market, it usually created a methane, which is even a potent gas, which is more dangerous than carbon dioxide. So a lot of resources should be diverted to post-harvest management to curb the implications of climate change and accelerate the fight and the attainment of more sustainable development goals that are earmarked by 2030. The next one should be catalyzing finance and investment in climate solutions. I think this is one of the areas we are lacking as a continent. A lot of resources should be diverted within the creation of most green technology and green jobs. So we should be able to divert, to allocate most of these resources, since this is one of the features of employment sector that can drive development within the African continent. The next one is one of the areas that is usually neglected by most government. We should be able to center, we should be able to inculcate our youth, our women, marginalized voices within climate leadership, especially vulnerable communities. As we said earlier, those who are paying this highest price within the fight against or within the implementation of climate change are mostly vulnerable communities. And you can bear with me that most of the developmental plans, they are always left out. So we should be able to include them within most of this developmental plan. We should also be able to mandate, I repeat, mandate afforestation and reforestation across every community in Africa and across the globe to accelerate the creation of carbon reservoirs. We should also be able to scale up renewable energy and clean energy access. We should make it, the energy should be accessible to each and every community, because you see most of our agrarian communities are still facing challenges on how to store their produce. And most of them, they clear the forest, they destroy the environment. Imagine at the end, the food end up in dustbin, which is not good for our environment. So empowering local communities and indigenous knowledge within our climate fight policies is also a very good initiative that will go a long way to accelerate the fight against climate change in the future. We should also be able to build resilience in floodplain areas through ecosystem restoration. You look at when a flood hit a vulnerable landscape, maybe as a result, you look at the urbanization in Africa. Urbanization in Africa, urbanization in Africa did not take into consideration the implications of most of this climate change. So we should be able to evacuate most of this vulnerable population to safer areas and create most of these flood prone areas to plan environmental trees in most of this area. So I'll be leaving the platform. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I hope it was insightful.
Yes, definitely it was in fact insightful. Thank you so much, Mr. Bello, and thank you so much for those insights, like mentioning that Africa is heavily affected by climate change, and we are actually receiving the brunt of climate change. And when you come to think that Africa depends on rain-fed agriculture, and you just notice that any change in the temperature and rainfall, its variability is going to affect almost everyone within the African continent. And thank you so much for those that, and also mentioning that the situation is very dire and it needs action on our part. And thank God we have these solutions that we have actually received from our forefathers, like the ones you were mentioning, crop rotation, agroforestry, intercropping, all those things. I think they are simple innovations that we simply need to come and take and tap in so that we can actually reduce the impacts of climate change, and also challenging us that we need to have innovations concerning post-harvest losses, because most of the harvested material find its way into landfills. So it's it's important that we actually take that one so that we can reduce the productive energy that is involved in producing these foodstuffs. Thank you so much, Mr. Abilu. It was quite an insightful engagement. This time, allow me to call Chizoba. She spoke earlier on, but now we are leaving it this time for her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Mine is not really, I would say, an extensive presentation like the others. It's more like a speech. And yeah, I think most of the things that I would, and I believe that the consequent speakers would also touch on so many of the topics. But for me, one of the most insightful, one of the things that I really love that I think I've heard majority of the panelists say is that Africa faces unique challenges due to its vulnerability to climate impact. You know, we have our own unique challenges, but most times you hear of icebergs and polar bears and everything. But we have our own unique challenges, things that we see that we witness from droughts to sea level rise and all of those things. And these unique challenges for us requires an innovative solutions and initiatives that can lead the way, into sustainable development. So for one, yeah, I believe most people would have read about renewable energy solutions from solar power to wind energy, depending on the country that we're looking at. What works for one might not work for the other. Let's say, for instance, in Kenya, I believe that projects like the Lake Turkana wind power project in it's something that in Kenya demonstrates the potential of wind energy to contribute significantly to the Kenya's energy needs. But if you want to take that somewhere else, maybe some other regions in Africa, it might not be feasible. So when we look at solar power, we want to consider countries like majority of countries in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, Nigeria, my country, and also, yeah, we can look at southern part of Africa too, like investing in solar farms and off-grid solar solutions would actually be very good for to providing would actually be a very good one for such regions as that. So we want to first of all look at the solutions that are feasible for our own landscape, Africa generally, and then we want to look at the regions like what doesn't work for us. Also, if we look, for instance, climate smart agriculture, drought resistant crops, and village that can help farmers adapt food security, which is becoming a sadly. And also, this one is very interesting. good solutions around this. We want to look at mobile technology and data analytics. I really like when the speaker that was talking about GIS. I really liked the in-depth knowledge he gave around that. So we're looking at digital agriculture. We want to look at mobile technology and data analytics that could, help empower farmers with real-time information on weather, soil, health, and market prices. Because these days, what we see now is that you plant and you're hoping to reap a bountiful harvest in 3 months, in 9 months, or you're hoping to harvest something some other time, and at the end of the day, it doesn't even turn out to be like that. I was discussing with two farmers earlier this month, and they were telling me their ordeal on how they lost a lot of their investments that even led to so many other farmers, like it led to depression, it led to death, and all of those things because the thing they were hoping to reap, I think they planted ginger, and there was this is it crop there was this crop infestation or something like that that affected the gingers and everything. So I was even asking them, okay, why was proper research like soil testing and all of those things not done, to avoid these things? And they were telling me, oh, majority of farmers do not have money to carry out these things. So consequently, also we want to look at green finance that that's going to enable you and I, that could help enable youths, that could help enable farmers, that could help enable local community. We want to look out to mobilize funding for climate projects through green bonds, climate funds, and public-private partnerships, which is very, very essential. We're also looking at international support. I'm very pained a lot of times when we have this kind of discussions, internationally. You hear about grant, you hear about loan. But I feel like a lot of international support is supposed to come as grants as regards these issues. So we want to also leverage on this international climate finance mechanisms like Green Climate Finance Fund in helping African nations access the resources that is needed for large scale projects, such like the ones that I mentioned, like climate smart agriculture, digital agriculture, and other clean energy innovations that we might be thinking of. So when we look at also let's look at water management technologies like rainwater harvesting. I think the last speaker was saying something around that, and like I said, majority of the people who have spoken before me had addressed a lot of issues that I would like to speak on. So we want to look at innovative approaches to capture and store rainwater, and this is very crucial for our communities, especially 2 days ago. I was having a conversation with my friend when we visited Kenya, and she was talking about how they don't really have food and everything. And I was telling her shortage of water. I didn't that I had good meals and everything. So you see, we want to address such issues, and it's not just in Kenya. It's going like it's almost everywhere in Africa. Speaking, and she was very sad. I think that was in Egypt. She said even the arable lands in Africa cannot even unheard of. Like it is not something that we are used to. So it's surprising that it's becoming an issue these days. It's no longer that you don't have money to even buy the food. It's sometimes you can't even find the food. The last session I was on 2 days ago, somebody was complaining how how within the region she's staying within her community it's difficult to get mangoes, and she really likes mangoes. That it just made her know how much the effects of climate crisis is in our community. You see, so we want to think about innovative approaches like water management technologies and also desalination projects. Like coastal countries are currently exploring desalination projects to convert seawater into potable water and addressing water shortages. The last one of the events I attended by Switzerland and Nigerian partnerships, they are looking at blue tech economy, and one of the things they're also looking at is converting seawater into potable water and addressing freshwater shortages. I think they gave us a case study of Lagos, and yeah, we want to also look at sustainable urban development. I'm very passionate about this one, looking at green building standards from adoption of sustainable construction practices and green buildings how to reduce carbon footprint and improving urban resilience. I was reading an article yesterday, and I also pointed it out that in the course of industrialization these days, we don't even think about sustainable practices. We just want to build, we just want to, develop our nations and every other thing, but we don't look at the effects on the long run. I think that is what has brought us to this point that we are in, because as at the 90s, oil exploration for some people felt like a good deal, but they did not put sustainable practices into exploring this oil. Like you go to a center of a community, like a village, maybe let's say Niger Delta, and you see this big, you just see, like you can't even breathe. Let's go to Port Harcourt in Nigeria. You can't, like, you look everywhere, black air and all of those things. At the center of a community, this is what everybody has to be passing through, right? Where people live. And on the long run, they start having health issues. And when you trace those things backwards, you see that you get to see that this is what they have been healing all their lives. And it's as a result of those things that is actually causing whatever ailments they get to face now. So we want to ensure sustainable practices, ensure that we reduce our carbon footprint, and also and when we also look at sustainable development, we want innovations in recycling, for instance, currently helping urban waste. So we want to also look at those things. So one thing I believe, like I was discussing with my hub members, I told them that because we were looking at a protest, like an activist who was calling Shell to take action, and I was telling them that if our government is not moving ahead to sue them, even after we call them, even after we hear our problem and say this is what we are facing as a result of this exploration within our communities, then it will feel like a lot of the things that you're saying is just for us to speak out, and then it goes, another generation comes and still complain about same things. So there's very key importance around policy and governance. So national policies that could help us strengthen climate policies, that we can integrate them into the national development plans of our country, of our individual countries. Government must also commit to implementing and enforcing these policies, because policies without implementation is just paperwork lying in state, because it won't do anything. And also, when it is being implemented, there is also need for infrastructures, monitoring and evaluation to ensure that these policies that are being implemented is actually taking shape. So a lot of times we just develop and then we leave it out there. So we need this government backing. Also, regional cooperation. African nation must also collaborate. I think when I was when I went to Ghana, I was having a discussion and I was telling them that it is very important that we come together, collaborate, because majority of the games that would have seen from the past is divide and conquer. If you're able to divide the family, if you're able to divide the community, if you're able to divide a nation, you can easily conquer them. So there is very key importance for us to collaborate. Look at Europe, look at majority of us want to go to EU. We have, that they give you your Schengen visa, you're able to go to about 26 countries, and we love that, but we can't say the same for Africa. So collaboration is very important. African nations must collaborate through organizations like the African Union and regional economic communities to share knowledge, resources. I like conversations like this, because when we come together, we are coming from different communities, we are coming from different countries, and we are coming together to talk about these things. We might not use it now, but one day it just comes up, it just pops up in your head. You might be in a consultation and you said, okay, fine, I remember that I had I was in such meeting, I had such conversations, just like I'm giving you, for most of the things I'm saying now, I will take you back that, oh, in this conference, in this meeting, or my conversation with this person, I never knew that maybe as I'm speaking to you now, I would use them. But this kind of conversations are very important. Consequently, you go for consultation, you are contributing to a document all of these things pops up in your head, and you are able to contribute to those things with knowledge that, or with conversations or things that you learned here. So yeah, regional cooperation is very important, and I've also talked about finance and investment. So lastly, I will talk about community engagement and education, grassroots movement, empowering local communities to participate in climate action through education and capacity building. That is the only thing that will ensure that sustainable practices are adopted at the grassroots level. Because if we are having conversations like this, and somebody in the village who does not have internet, who does not have a mobile phone, that cannot even that even if they are here, they can't comprehend fully, because maybe probably they're not used to speaking English, they're used to speaking other languages. So if we leave them behind and we say it is not important, we are the ones that want to go and bring, then then themselves will not adopt these sustainable practices or embrace this knowledge of, okay, it's important for us to take climate action. So we have to work
Hello.
with the governing board, and we have to also educate them. So, in conclusion, I will tell you that Africa stands as a pivotal point in the fight against climate change, and our continent has its own unique challenge, and it is marked by vast, potential of innovation, renewable energy technologies, sustainable agriculture. We look at advanced water management. We look at community-driven initiatives that we as Africa, we cannot only mitigate the impacts of climate change, but we will also set an example for the world. So we should not be waiting for the world to always set an example for us. We can take that lead. We can be the change that we want to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chizoba, for those insights. Indeed, there is great need for collaboration, um, and also indeed there is need for monitoring and evaluation. Many a times innovations come, but people never bother to come and do monitoring and also evaluating whether the engagement has been successful, or has it been owned by people, or is it being used by people, or rather is it still relevant to the community, to the local people, to regions. So thank you so much for those insights. From these discussions, we have constantly noted that climate change is everywhere. It is in schools, it is in our workplaces, it is in our homes, it is in our football pitches, it is even in the salon. So this entails that innovation can be everywhere and can come from everywhere, posing a bigger opportunity to the African continent, especially the youth, because it is everywhere. Yes, we have the crisis of climate change, but from the crisis, there are low-hanging fruits that we can actually get. What ideas, what processes are we thinking of? Are we seeing so that we can upscale, so that they can be actually accessed easily, so that they can actually be taken by communities for their own use. I loved the points that were being said, like those concerning early warning systems at local level. There is a drought in Zimbabwe. Many people went to the agricultural fields, they planted, they lost almost all the inputs because of the drought. But imagine if there was an early warning system at a local level, so that people can understand actually that this is an El Nino season, from the things that they see at local level and from local innovations that speaks more directly to the people. It means that we might not be losing much of the resources that we are losing today because of simple lack of innovations. Thank you so much, everyone, for the engagements. I really appreciate it, and I have learned a lot from all the speakers, from the GIS engagements, from the collaborations engagement. Thank you so much. Without much ado, let me also leave this time to my co-moderator. His name is Kelvin Jomo. Kelvin Jomo, at this time, I leave it to you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for eloquently guiding this session today. And I would want to take this opportunity to thank all our speakers. And from when we started, of course, we looked at various, okay, the climate change is wider, and but we tried to find the bigger picture and at least touch every sector and try to dissect and bring something out of it. And I want to thank our speakers who, with their very, very squeezed schedules and uh, having other activities they usually do, they had time to come through. So we have come to the end of the series. There were 5 episodes, and I would want to remind members the episode that we tackled. We started with climate challenges and impacts in Africa. That is episode 1. Episode 2, we talked about exploring renewable energy in Africa. Episode 3, we talked about climate finance and how governments, stakeholders, international partners, international players should finance climate. We talked about that. Episode 4, we talked about impact of that energy and its implication in Africa. We dissected that. And today, very, very promising, we have talked about innovations in climate change and the solution. And we thank our speakers and the participants for being faithful and very consistent. So we look forward to engage you further, our speakers. We have the records. We have just started. This is, I can call it as PISA. So we have a lot. We are planning in various spaces that align to our vision and mission of upkeeping sustainable skills and innovations in Africa. So I would want to, at this time, for a long time, this gentleman rarely speaks, but we will give him a few minutes to talk and crown it together as we come to close and call it a day for climate webinar series at Sustainable Africa for this first season. That is no other than our programs director, Ibrahim Baba Abubakar. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Calvin. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ibrahim Baba Ubakar. I'm the Program Director of Sustainable Africa. So, as we conclude our climate change webinar series today, I want to thank all of you for your engagement and dedication. Over the past weeks, we've addressed climate issues, on which our first topic was climate change and its challenges and local solutions, and then we touched about renewable energy, and then climate finance, and later on we did impact of dirty energy, and then today we showcased some innovation in climate solutions. But this is just the beginning. I urge each and every one of you to take action in your communities, advocate for sustainable practice, support local innovations, and inspire others to join the cause. We are open for collaboration with all our shared vision for a sustainable Africa. Together, we can drive impactful change for Africa and the world. Thank you to our esteemed speakers, team members, and participants as well. Thank you all. And there is a questionnaire we pinned on the chat box. So I urge you to help us fill this questionnaire for us to understand, how better we can improve our webinars for future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our Director of Programs. Kindly members, let's fill that questionnaire because it helps us to track and see the impacts of our programs as we move forward in our course of projects. So at this time, unless there is a concern, a question, again, I normally say that it is important we follow each other. It is important we share our social media handles because that is the easy thing we can do so that we connect. That way, we cannot lose the sight of each other because if we disappear without connecting, we start afresh. So let's follow each other in Twitter. For example, I've shared my Twitter handle, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow us as Sustainable Africa and spread the word. Finally, again, Chizoba, I got your friend, your mentor. I don't know whether it's the one you was talking about, called Sally, said that I should greet you, and I attest that you're mentoring her so well. So thank you so much. I think we can have a nice Saturday wherever we are, and meet next time when we invite each other. Thank you so much.
Happy Africa Day to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye to everyone.